The house was already buzzing when I walked through the front door, the kind of laughter and chatter that carried through the hallways before I even saw who was inside. Warm light spilled from the chandeliers, bouncing off polished glassware and half-empty wine glasses. My mother's roses sat in tall vases on the dining table, their petals a little too perfect, as though she had hand-selected each one to impress whoever was watching. It was our family party, the kind that happened once or twice a year when enough birthdays and anniversaries collided to justify hauling everyone into one house. To anyone else, it might have looked like joy. To me, it felt more like theater. I slipped into my usual role, the dependable daughter, the one who remembered to bring a thoughtful bottle of wine, the one who offered to help stack plates before anyone asked. My cousins greeted me politely, offering the same surface-level smiles they always did, then drifting back into their own conversations. That was fine. I'd grown used to it. What I hadn't grown used to was Vanessa. She was already holding court near the patio doors, her laugh high and sharp, designed to draw attention. A cocktail shimmered in her hand and she gestured with it like it was an accessory, rather than a drink. She wore a glittering dress that caught the light every time she moved, making her the undeniable focal point of the room. That was always her role, the dazzling one, the reckless one, the girl who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes no matter how many wrongs she stacked up. "Look who finally showed up," she called across the room when she spotted me, her smirk blooming before the words had even finished leaving her mouth. A few relatives chuckled, as if I'd been late on purpose rather than caught in traffic. I smiled politely, ignored the jab, and moved toward the kitchen. That was the difference between us. I stayed quiet, steady. She thrived on sparks. At some point during the evening, she found me standing by the buffet table, carefully picking through a tray of appetizers. She slipped in close, lowering her voice like she was about to share a secret. "You know," she said, eyes darting around the room before settling back on me, "I've been thinking of starting a little business, just something fun, but I'll need a little push to get it off the ground." There it was, the setup for her request. Always wrapped in charm, always with that little glimmer that suggested she thought she deserved whatever she asked for. "How much of a push?" I asked, already knowing the answer wouldn't be small. "Nothing crazy," she said with a careless shrug. "Just 29,000. You'll make it back, I promise. Consider it an investment." "In me?" She grinned like it was the easiest thing in the world, like she was offering me a chance of a lifetime. I set my plate down, turned fully toward her, and gave her the same calm answer I always gave. "No." Her smirk didn't falter. Not yet, but I saw the flicker in her eyes, the spark of irritation she couldn't quite hide. That was the moment I knew she wouldn't let it go quietly. The evening carried on with the same forced cheerfulness, glasses clinking and voices overlapping like a badly tuned orchestra. I tried to keep my attention on an uncle's story about retirement plans, nodding at the right moments, but my eyes kept drifting toward the patio where Vanessa held court like a queen. She was laughing too loudly, flashing smiles that didn't quite reach her eyes. I recognized that look, the kind she wore when a plan was forming. My laptop sat on the side table near the open patio doors, tucked safely in its bag. I'd brought it because I'd been working on a contract earlier in the day and hadn't had time to stop home. To me, it wasn't just a computer. It was my livelihood, client projects, tax documents, years of data carefully stored and organized. In that bag was everything I'd built for myself. Vanessa noticed it before I realized she had wandered near. She plucked the bag up with a dramatic little sigh, calling across the room. "Still working during family parties, sis? Come on, live a little." I felt my stomach tighten. "Put it down, Vanessa, please." My tone was even calm, but edged with something sharper underneath. She smirked. The same smirk she wore when she stole my clothes as a teenager, or when she maxed out my credit card in college, except this time it carried a heavier weight. "Oh, relax," she said, slipping the laptop out of its bag as though it were nothing more than a prop in her performance. She balanced it loosely in her hand, swaying a little closer to the pool's edge. Her audience, a few cousins and friends, tittered nervously, unsure whether this was a joke or something more. My pulse quickened. "Vanessa," I said firmly, "don't." Her grin widened. She tilted the laptop slightly, pretending to lose her grip, earning a gasp from the crowd. Then she looked straight at me, eyes glittering with something between defiance and delight. "Oh, sorry," she drawled, voice thick with mock innocence. I accidentally dropped it. The laptop slipped from her hands, a flash of silver against the dark water. The splash echoed through the yard, drowning out the laughter, silencing the conversations. I watched, frozen, as ripples swallowed the machine whole, bubbles rising for a moment before disappearing into stillness. It felt like watching my entire life sink in slow motion. The crowd broke into nervous whispers. My mother hurried forward, clutching Vanessa's arm. "Oh, sweetie, accidents happen," she soothed, glaring at me as though daring me to make a scene. Vanessa pressed a hand to her chest, feigning remorse. "Oops, I didn't mean to. You know how clumsy I am." Her smirk betrayed her. She was daring me too, daring me to explode, to become the villain in front of everyone. I didn't give her the satisfaction. I stood perfectly still, my hands clenched at my sides, the chill of fury spreading through me like ice. My laptop was gone. My work was gone. And in that moment, one thing became perfectly clear. Vanessa believed she had just won. She had no idea what she had started. I didn't make a scene that night. I stayed long enough to sip one last glass of water, long enough to let the whispers coil around the room, and then I slipped out without saying goodbye. My silence was heavier than any words I could have thrown. When I got home, the house felt colder, emptier, though nothing had changed. I dropped the laptop bag, now nothing but a hollow shell, by the door and sat in the quiet. My hands shook not from sadness but from the white-hot restraint of holding everything in. Rage wanted to claw its way out. But rage was what Vanessa wanted. Rage made me look small, irrational. No. If she thought she had won, I would let her think it. For now. Instead of sleeping, I opened my phone. One by one, I began the quiet work of reclaiming what was mine. Password resets, streaming accounts, online shopping, cloud storage, all of it had tendrils Vanessa once demanded access to. Each time I hit log out of all devices, I felt lighter. Netflix gone, Amazon gone, the Apple ID she had used to borrow music and movies for years. Locked tight, it wasn't loud revenge, it wasn't fire and fury. It was a series of quiet clicks, deliberate and final. By morning, my phone buzzed with the first wave of fallout. Why can't I log into Spotify? The Netflix password isn't working. Did you change it? Don't be petty. You're really going to punish me over a little accident? Her text came rapid fire, dripping with indignation and entitlement. I didn't reply. Silence, I realized, had a power I'd never wielded before. When silence didn't work, she escalated. Screenshots began appearing in the family group chat. Sarcastic memes about uptight sisters, little jabs framed as jokes. My mother chimed in with her own brand of guilt. "You know Vanessa didn't mean it. You're blowing this out of proportion. Just forgive her, she's your sister." My father sent nothing at all. His silence wasn't the same as mine. His silence was avoidance. I muted the chat. For years, I had let their voices drown mine out. For years, I'd played the role of the calm one, the stable one, the sister who always bent so Vanessa wouldn't break. And what had that earned me? A laptop at the bottom of a pool and a smirk carved into memory. So I drew my first boundary. I would not argue. I would not justify. I would not explain. I would remove the oxygen from Vanessa's fire. And as her messages piled higher, texts, DMs, missed calls, even an angry Instagram story tagged with my name, I stayed silent. The noise grew, but in the center of it I was still. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. It was the first step in taking my life back. The days that followed were strangely quiet. Not from Vanessa. Her noise grew louder, spilling across social media in cryptic posts about toxic people and jealous sisters. But from me. My silence was steady, deliberate, unshaken. She didn't realize silence wasn't weakness. Silence was planning. It began with a drawer in my desk. I pulled out an empty binder, its cover stiff, its pages blank, and I thought, if she wants to play games, then I'll keep score. The first few pages filled easily, memories I'd carried for years, each one sharp as glass. The credit card I discovered in college, charged to the limit with spa treatments and designer shoes. The dress I saved 3 months for only to find it crumpled and stained at the back of her closet. The time she borrowed my resume to apply for a job, only to get caught when she couldn't answer a single interview question. I wrote each incident down. neatly with dates, receipts, screenshots, evidence, proof that I wasn't exaggerating, that Vanessa's accidents weren't accidents at all. For the first time, her chaos began to look orderly on paper, but as I dug deeper, I found something worse. Buried in my email archives was a forwarded pitch deck. At first glance, it looked like the standard kind of startup nonsense, flashy slides, vague promises. But when I read the details, my stomach turned. She had used my name, not just borrowed it, not just implied my support. She had listed me as a consultant, plastered my credentials across her proposal to investors. My silence deepened into something heavier. This wasn't just sibling sabotage. This was fraud. I spent an entire evening cross-checking, reaching out to people I hadn't spoken to in years. A few investors responded cautiously, confirming they had been told I was on board. Others sent me screenshots, emails, texts, even photos of her using my work in presentations. Piece by piece, the pile grew. What had started as a drawer became a binder, and what had started as petty grievances became a case. I thought about my parents, about how many times they had brushed her behavior aside with the same tired refrain. She's your sister. You should let it go. They had always needed evidence, always needed me to prove I wasn't overreacting. Fine, I would give them evidence. I would give them so much evidence they wouldn't be able to look away. By the end of the week, the binder was thick, heavy in my hands. Its weight was satisfying, a tangible answer to years of gaslighting. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. Instead, I handed a copy of the evidence to a lawyer friend, who helped me draft the first official move, a cease and desist. Addressed to Vanessa, copied to her so-called business partner, and pointedly copied to my parents. For once, the paper would speak louder than her smirk. The cease and desist landed like a stone dropped in still water, silent for a beat, then ripples everywhere. Vanessa's first reaction was predictable: outrage. My phone lit up with a barrage of messages. You're insane. You wouldn't dare follow through. This is family business, not legal business. Her fury bled into guilt trips within hours. After everything I've done for you? What had she done exactly? I couldn't recall a single favor. You're really going to drag me down just because of a little misunderstanding? I didn't reply. Silence again. My most powerful weapon. The next phase came quickly. Her business partner, a college friend she'd managed to charm into the scheme, sent a curt email severing ties. I didn't need to ask why. The letter had been clear. Using my name, my work, my reputation without consent wasn't just unethical. It was actionable. Nobody wanted to be caught in that fallout. Within days, whispers started circulating. The same investors she had been flattering suddenly ghosted her. Friends who once filled her Instagram stories with champagne toasts stopped tagging her altogether. Her glittering little empire, the one built on my back, crumbled faster than she could post another filtered photo. But the real collapse came at home. One evening, my father called, his voice tighter than usual. We need to talk, he said. No warmth, no preamble, just wait. When I arrived, the binder sat on the coffee table like an uninvited guest. My father was hunched over it, flipping page after page, his glasses sliding low on his nose. My mother perched on the sofa, her mouth a thin line. Vanessa stood near the window, arms crossed, eyes flashing with the wild defiance of someone cornered. Explain this, my father said, tapping the binder. His tone was low, dangerous in its restraint. Vanessa laughed, too high-pitched, too forced. It's exaggerated. She's twisting everything to make me look bad. She's jealous, she always has been. But every denial wilted under the weight of the pages. Screenshots don't lie. Bank statements don't lie. Emails signed with my name don't lie. My father didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He just kept turning pages slower and slower until the silence grew unbearable. Finally, he closed the binder with a soft snap that sounded louder than a gunshot. That's enough, he said. Pack your things. The smirk Vanessa had worn like armor for years cracked. For a moment, I saw panic flicker across her face. She sputtered excuses, half-hearted apologies, but they scattered uselessly in the air. My mother reached for her, but even she couldn't shield Vanessa this time. The evidence was too heavy, too undeniable. I stood back, saying nothing. This wasn't victory through screaming or revenge through theatrics. This was truth laid bare, undeniable at last. And truth had finally turned the tables. The night my father told Vanessa to leave replayed in whispers across the family tree. like a scandal too sharp to ignore. Aunts called cousins. Cousins texted me screenshots of group chats gone suddenly quiet. It was as if silence itself had spread, smothering the voices that once defended her at every turn. By morning, she was gone. 2 suitcases, a duffel bag, no plan. My parents didn't tell me directly. I learned from my aunt, who couldn't resist calling with the play-by-play. "Your dad was like a stone," she said, almost impressed. Didn't raise his voice once, just ended it. For the first time, Vanessa had been forced to face the edge of consequences without a net. The strange part was how little triumph I felt. I didn't gloat, didn't post cryptic quotes online, didn't relish her unraveling. Instead, I felt something steadier, a calm that had eluded me for years. Life settled into a new rhythm. The frantic buzzing of my phone, the guilt trips, the family interventions, the endless demands went still. My mother's texts shifted into something oddly neutral. "Hope you're well. Dinner next week?" Stripped of accusation, they felt almost like olive branches, tentative and fragile. My father's messages were briefer still. "Proud of you. Keep going." Words he'd never said aloud before. My business flourished in the quiet. The new laptop, sleek and impenetrable, became more than just a tool. It was a symbol of the boundaries I'd built. Every new client, every signed contract, every late night of steady progress reminded me I was thriving not despite the storm, but because I'd finally stepped out of it. Sometimes, I'd catch myself staring at the binder on my shelf. Thick, heavy, humming with the weight of years I'd almost convinced myself to endure in silence. I never opened it again. I didn't need to. It wasn't a weapon anymore. It was a reminder that boundaries aren't drawn with a single dramatic act, but with 100 quiet choices to stop letting people bleed you dry. I saw Vanessa once, months later, by chance outside a coffee shop. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, but as though the bravado had been peeled away. No designer bag, no smirk, just a hoodie and a hollowed expression. For the first time in years, she didn't meet my eyes with challenge. She looked away, and I kept walking, because revenge had never been the point. It wasn't about crushing her or proving myself right or parading my success as her failure. It was about stepping out of the cycle, about refusing to play the villain in a script I never wrote. The most powerful revenge wasn't the binder, the cease and desist, or even watching her empire collapse. It was this, knowing I no longer needed to fight, that I could let silence, truth, and time do what I never could with anger. In the end, Vanessa destroyed herself, and all I had to do was stop protecting her from it.